practice design. It's what every coach, what every educator, what every person that's trying to do something is really doing. But how we do that effectively, I think, is the biggest conversation when it comes to coach education, which is something that came to me on Monday. It emerged from other conversations, and I realized, well, practice design is what I've been doing for years because that's what I do. Like thinking about effective practice design. But the way that most other coaches articulate it is, what drill should I do?
Mm.
And I recognized, maybe that is something that we could discuss. Because
Ooh.
when I was asking you about the questions, you're like, yeah, but how do I do that? How do I practice that?
Mm.
And I feel like the question you were sort of asking was, what drill do I need to do?
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose it was. What is the drill? What is the activity? It's so grained all the years of coaching, like the trainings that I've taken, not necessarily the same caliber of what you've done, of course, but all the education that I've had has been people telling me what to do. I never ever do what they tell me what to do because I don't want to do what they tell me what to do because they don't understand my unique context. But that is a good point. But it's always like, oh, just do this thing and then do that thing and then do this thing, and they never explain why.
Yeah. Well, it's the idea of the best technique, of course. You do
Mm,
this drill to drill the best technique. Once you've drilled the best technique enough, you can then just plop it into your situation. Um, don't work like that. And
no.
I I feel like that is something that even if it's not said, is done when it comes to education. Like
Yeah.
we're just going to drill this thing. We are going to practice this thing enough so that you can do it on your own,
Yeah.
which isn't it's not the philosophy that we're taking, the ecological approach is not allowing individuals to explore movement in the same way, because I feel like it's still exploring movement, but not in the same way, because it's just heavily constrained
Yeah,
exploration.
that's what I was thinking. It's incredibly constrained. It's incredibly right. You need to just do this thing, get on with it, and do it this way. Because this is the way you need to do it, and this is why you need to do it this way.
Mm.
Because sometimes you do get told why, which is supposed to be better and helpful.
See that's an interesting one for me. So I was at training yesterday. I've got some recordings of me trampolining now, actually like doing a training. Um, but the head coach came round and discussed with some of the others on my trampoline about not doing certain skills. So they were doing certain skills that, I mean, they were confident enough to do, they were comfortable doing, they were safe doing, or it looked safe to me. Like there was no landing on head or almost falling off or looking dangerous or anything like that. But the coach said or asked them not to do it because they said it wasn't safe. That was their reason why. But it looked entirely safe. The individuals were in control. And the because it's not safe was coming from, if you don't do this, this, and this with your body, then you could do this, which is unsafe. So I
Hmm.
don't want you doing that skill. And to me, broken down, that's the coach saying, you're not doing the technique that I want you to do. That means you could be unsafe, which makes me liable, so I don't want you doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is hugely limiting, and I would say problematic as a coach as well, because you're saying that the person isn't doing it your way,
They
so
that that's saying that
they're
they're
not gonna be able
incapable.
to do it.
Yeah, that they're unable to do it. Yeah, that's so interesting.
And I was like, when I heard this, I immediately disliked it. And the more I've reflected and thought about it, the more I dislike it. To bring into to focus what it is, and we'll get onto like practice design in a second. To bring into focus what this was, is there was a 57-year-old man that's
Hmm.
trampolining,
Hmm.
right? And he was doing a tuck back somersault to back landing. So doing 1 1/4 back somersault rotations. Now, on a trampoline, you want to stay in the middle. Was he in the middle? Yes. Was he going round, all the way round his back? Yes. Was he in a really tight tuck shape? No, because he struggles to get into a tight tuck shape. So he actually had to put more force in to get round because he's in a bigger shape, right? Big shape, slower. And the reason that he wasn't allowed to do the skill afterwards was, listen to this, he wasn't using his feet right on takeoff. Now, if you're outside of trampoline, that means probably means absolutely nothing to you. In in layman's terms, what she's saying, the coach is saying, is the rotation, i.e., how he goes backflip, isn't coming from the feet going forwards, it's coming from somewhere else. But when we look at the biomechanics, rotation doesn't just come from feet. Because if you only throw your feet forwards, well, now you've only thrown your feet forwards and you're just going to
Yeah.
bend at the hip, right?
Yeah.
So you need to move your hips as well, but also your shoulders and your head. So you need to move your body in a backwards rotation.
Yeah.
So if you move your feet more, then maybe you pike and maybe you don't keep your legs straight, so you tuck in and it looks kind of like a loose tuck or a chair, which is what his looked like because his legs weren't straight, his body wasn't straight, but he still got round. The rotation was still there. But the isolation on you're not using your feet enough was the problem. And when I relate this to a golf swing, it's like saying, oh, your backswing wasn't high enough. Well, did did the club go forwards and the ball go forwards? Well, yes. So there was success there. And this broken down, isolated movement that's required to complete the technique and then put back together as the skill is where we're talking about how we learn to move and the ecological approach at skill development, which to me, if we look at practice design, that drill, that isolated technique is extremely constraining. And
Yeah.
it literally, because I asked the guy afterwards, do you think you'll be able to do it? Well, he was saying most people won't be able to do a double back, and that's the skill he was prepping. So he has this negative connotation towards the skill that he was prepping, and I don't think that is because he doesn't think he can't do the skill. I think
No,
that's
it's
because that's what the
because
coach is creating in the environment.
so he can't do it in that particular way that he's been told to do.
Yeah. So when it comes to practice design, how do you make practice design? Like if you want to develop a skill, not trampoline skill, but any skill, how do you make the practice? I think that example is a highly constrained, isolated practice design.
Yeah.
So
How do I do
it's
it?
still design and practice, but so yeah, how do
Yeah.
you do it that's different? I assume
So
because you're taking an ecological approach.
yeah, so for me, when I want to achieve something or do something, kind of, usually it's just behaviors of some sort, which is what we look at anyway. And so let's say, for example, I want to improve my prep or make prep easier for D&D or something. So the practice is I'm looking at the end where I want to go, what I want to achieve, and I'm looking every single thing that I'm doing. I'm looking at it and going, cool, how does this help me do this thing? How could this help me do this thing? How could this help me achieve that? What is it telling me about this? How can I relate this back to that? And often my practice design is very rarely sitting in front of a computer, I found. It's often when I'm going off and grabbing myself a cup of tea and I'm just,
As in when you're doing the practice design.
yeah, yeah. I'm kind of like thinking about what I'm doing. And then that often when I come back, it is very much, cool, this is how this would work. And this is why this is helping me with this. And this is helping me with that. And I'm like, interesting. That meant this. Okay, cool. That meant I got a little bit sidetracked on like rebuilding a bit in Obsidian or something like that. But actually when I rebuilt it afterwards, it's like, oh no, this is so much easier. I want to improve. That's a good example, actually. I rebuilt my Obsidian because I wanted to make NPC relationships, non-playable character relationships, more integral to the plots of my kind of campaigns and the factions and all of that. So one thing I was thinking is like, how can I bring the factions forward? Because that's kind of how I enjoy running games. It's a people thing and how people interact with each other and all that lovely stuff, and how the NPCs interact with the PCs and all of that lovely stuff, player characters. And those interactions I find really important, and they're fun because my party are ridiculous. My parties are all ridiculous. I love them all, but they're all stupid.
You're playing D&D, like come on.
Yeah. And so yeah, I wanted to. So how would I do that? Well, I need to be able to see what NPCs are in locations because then I can start, even when they're like across on a different area of the world, or they're in a different city, or they're in a different town. I want to be thinking about, okay, cool, where is this cult? Where are they? Where is the leader of this cult? Where are they based? What are they doing?
I was just moving my camera because I recognized I put the camera on after taking it out, and I was like, oh, it's not centered.
Not
So
centered. Yeah. And so a lot of it was like, okay, cool. This is the thing I want to do. How do I go about making it? How do I go about doing it? Like, what do I need to create? What can I use? What do I have already? And how will it help me get there? It's kind of I could talk for quite a while about how I rebuilt my Obsidian on, and it was like creating different templates that were focused on who is in this location, where are the PCs at, what is in this location, what like different layers. And so that helped me now when I'm coming in and I'm adding a new NPC, or they've gone to a different area, it takes so much less time for me to get into that using an active creating. So it's so much faster. So my prep time has gone down,
yeah. So the
but
way
also it's kind of gone up too because I'm able to do much more in a condensed amount of time.
the, the way I would describe that, I think, is because you've got problem solving in there. So obviously the practice design creates the environment for you to develop the skills. And the
Mhm.
developing of the skill in your situation is the prep time. It's how do I make this prep time more effective? So the
Especially because of or I've had a couple of new clients coming in. I've just finished a conference that I was part of, and I'm getting a lot of inquiries. So I'm like, okay, cool. I know I could get quite busy now, so my prep time needs to be as effective as possible, running 4 to 5 campaigns.
mm. But
I need to be
that
more
to
effective.
me there, so you've got environmental constraints, so you recognize your time is going to be reduced in order to do said thing. Right?
Yeah.
So your practice design is shaped around the constraints of the environment. You need to practice this skill because
Mhm.
you won't have time to complete your goal, i.e. prep for D&D in time.
Yeah.
So I guess what's the win condition of the session is speed up D&D prep or
Yeah.
make D&D prep more effective.
Yeah.
The
Which,
constraints are,
yeah.
well, we need to make sure that
Time.
it's done in this time, yeah. But then
Time.
also for using Obsidian, like that's a constraint. And
Yes.
and then you're problem solving. So you're skill developing. You're developing your ability to prep D&D more effectively. And I feel like all of us do this somewhat intuitively when we're trying to
Yes.
problem solve.
I wasn't sat there thinking, okay, how can I problem solve this? I wasn't going, okay, cool. How can I design my practice? Like it wasn't, and I think that's the thing with the traditional productivity approach and those approaches of like, I must think about the thing I'm gonna do before I do it. It's very funny. On Monday, I learned how blunt I can be at 10:30 at night on a conference call when someone was like, how do I plan this? How am I supposed to plan everything? And I'm like, my response was, don't. Now, I didn't mean don't plan. It was more don't actively plan because you will plan. As soon as you start doing stuff, you start planning, you start thinking, you start
Timescales
moving.
overlap.
Like the timescales are overlapping, and you're like, I'm going, I'm going. And I had been thinking about redesigning this for age, like redesigning my system for a while now because I've been talking to other DMs and how they run their games and understanding how they run their games. And I like how they run their games and I enjoy that experience. I'm like, how can I incorporate some of that? Because often it was fly by the head, seat my pants a lot of the time, which was fine when I had the capacity to kind of do that. But if I'm a little bit more tired and my energy levels are lower because I've been working all day and I haven't been able to prep just literally for an entire day, I need to be able to operate in my best possible way and be effective. So to do that, I needed to change things.
So a question for you then.
Hmm.
That's the practice design
Hmm.
for you problem solving. To me, that's self-coaching, right? That's what most of us do. Your ability to self-coach is quite effective, I would say. But when it comes to others or other individuals interacting with family,
I know
interacting
where
with
you're going.
friends, yeah. Like, how do you try and practice design for that. I mean, you're not going to sit your children down, or your partner down, and go, right, okay, we're going to practice this skill today, and this is the session we're going to do. Like, I mean, you could. I don't think it would work. I think it
It's
would cause a
no,
lot of friction.
it will not be very effective in any way, shape, or form. Um, Unfortunate. So for my partner, it's very difficult because they don't want to feel coached. And it is a weird interaction because I naturally fall into coaching. I naturally fall into helping problem solve, find solutions, ask where they want to what they want to achieve, and often it's like, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, cool. And it's like immediately there is often a like
What do you mean they don't know what to
I
achieve?
sometimes hmm?
What do you mean they don't know what they want to achieve?
Well, in other words, my guess, because I don't know,
Mhm.
is they don't feel confident in that, or they're not sure which one is the best, the best way. They need to find the correct way of doing the things that they want to do and know what they want to do. They've often struggle with knowing which one,
Yeah,
or whether it is the correct
to
thing.
me, that's not knowing what they want to do. That's knowing how they want to do it. Like
Mm.
that's the problem solving bit. But surely they know what they want to do, like the goal, the win condition.
According to them, they do not.
Then how do they behave? Like how do they act without a goal? Because we're goal-directed creatures, organisms.
I don't know.
Like if they want to, well, yeah, they can't not want to do something because if they want to do something, then they have a goal, they have a win
I think it's
condition.
often that it's wanting to do all of the things. There is a lot of things they want to do, and they want to do all of the things all of the time. That is my, once again, this is just from
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
my perception. So
Hypothetical.
it's
Yeah.
hypothetical. My, like, when I perceive their actions and their behaviors, it is, I've got to do everything. I have to do all of the things. Now, I've got to look after the kids. I've got to be able to figure every single thing out on my own.
To me, that is what practice is. It's
Mm,
overlapping goal states because that's what we are.
mm,
So I don't see that as any different from any other individual, unless I'm missing something. So if we've got multiple win conditions
mhm,
in any situation when we're doing practice design, what we would look to do is make it achievable to that person. If they
mm,
can do all of those things within the time constraint that you've given for the practice design, then great, go for it. If they can't, well, now task simplification. I bringing this back to trampoline because I can use this as a practical example. If I'm teaching someone or helping someone learn a seat landing, for example, the win condition might be land on your bum and then get back to your feet. It's task simplified. That's the win condition. If I've been working with someone for a while and they can already do that, maybe the win conditions are land on your bum, get to feet with straight legs and pointed toes, with your hands facing forwards and your arms up in the first bounce, landing, then up when they come back up. Like there are loads of win conditions there, but they are competent enough, they've developed their skills enough to complete all of those win conditions
mm.
because it's a more complex task. And obviously, then extend that to however many things that you want to develop on the skills. And that to me is where we're attuning our focus to specifying information that's useful for completing the win condition, the task, the goal at that time, at that point in time. And then the individual problem solves to get all those win conditions. So if someone's got multiple win conditions, I don't see that as a bad thing or good thing. It's just a thing.
Yeah, that is, and I agree.
So
However,
how would you shape the practice design to help with task simplification?
um, it would depend on how it would depend on the percent of what I saw for like my other half and how they were feeling. Because often when I'm when we're in that environment, there is a lot of what I perceive as guilt for not being able to do anything, and they feel they should be doing it themselves. So there's a lot of emotional stuff
Mhm.
that I have to be aware of. So yeah, often it is like, okay, cool.
You say that as if that's different,
I suppose it's not, is it really?
because every
Because we're
organism
all
has emotions.
we are all emotional. So actually it doesn't matter, does it really? Thinking about it.
I mean, I
I think
I
what I'm
feel like I understand what you're trying to say.
yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to it is more of a the outcome I'm looking for is not to make the person feel rotten and
Hmm.
feel crappy because then the whole practice session won't work
Oh yeah,
because
it's an
it
ineffective
will
practice design.
it'll be ineffective. And so that is something that I take into account when I'm trying to help.
Mhm.
And often it is the case of like, it is very much, okay, cool. So what do you want to do? What are the things that what are the things you're trying to do? Is first, it's like figuring out what their conditions for success are, like what they're trying to do. And often it's like, I got to do this, 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 I got to do this. And it's a massive long list of hundreds of different things. I'm feeling like this, I'm struggling with this, I'm dealing with this. So, okay, cool. So where would you like to start? So it is about kind of constraining a little bit and just giving a which way because I sense the overwhelm, I sense the frustration of not being able to do it all, I sense the time constraints, and all of those things are there. And there is a rejection of all of those things. Like, no, I hate the fact that I only have half an hour before I have to go to work, or I hate the fact I can't do this, and I hate the fact I can't do this, and I should be able to do all of these things, but I can't. There is a preconceived notion of like, I must do everything. And so it's like, okay, cool. So here's the thing. This is a thing. Where do you want to go?
I feel, I mean, using ecological terms there, I mean, as perceiving affordances of others, and I feel like organisms do that all the time. Anyway, that's when we're uh, perceiving whether someone is stressed, angry, happy, not, etc. That is certainly an ability that some individuals are better at because it's a skill that people develop over time. Being
Yeah,
empathetic with others, some people struggle with it. Again, field of affordances. Where are people's focuses when it comes to the affordances that they're perceiving? Something that I feel is it's very, very similar. Like when you said, I'm going to constrain this task, it's task simplification. It's very, very similar to like coaching sport, coaching in school, just working with other people for me when I look at those explanations. And the task simplification, the ability to add constraints or shape uh, the learning environment, as it
yeah.
were, is prioritization. Like when you say I need to prioritize, it's okay, I'm going to add constraints to simplify this task, which makes me wonder if the individual struggles at creating their own learning environments, i.e., struggles to prioritize themselves, where would you fit in? Because that is essentially what you would be doing as a coach,
Mm.
as a teacher, as a
I would start
mentor.
asking questions. Like my next thing would be, okay, cool. So it often what I ask is what do you need to do? And they list. So what are the things that's going on? Oh, well, I've got loads of things going on in my head. Okay, cool. Do you want share some of them with me and then maybe I can help? And then it's like, okay, they share, they like, what are they? Okay, cool. What order do you need to do them? Like, what order do you think you need to do them in? Like, what do you want to do now? How are you feeling? And it's asking about the constraints that the perceived kind of affordances that they have. And so it's like, how are you feeling? Are you tired? Yes. Okay, cool. Any of those, how are you feeling about those?
I'm just trying to understand why the emotional feeling helps the practice design for you when it comes to an articulation of it.
As in how I'm talking about it.
Well, yeah, if you're asking, if you like, if I ask a child, how do you feel? They'll probably say, I don't know, or happy, sad, angry. Like those answers, the words,
Mm.
I don't know how that changes my practice design.
Okay.
Because if the child says they feel angry, does it mean that they can't do the skill? I don't
It
know.
depends.
Exactly.
That does depend.
Exactly. They say happy, frustrated, sad. Like it's very much dependent on the rest of the situation. And what I find in my practice, at least, is I I don't ask what their emotions are because they're telling me through their actions. Like if someone does something and then in the next go they do less and it
Mhm.
looks like they're trying less, I don't need to ask them, are you feeling frustrated or do you not want to do this anymore? Like I can see it by the behavior. And so instead of asking them to I guess, explain the behavior that they don't really want to be having, I sort of I perceive the behavior. I'm thinking to myself, okay, I feel like they're frustrated. I'll ask them, do you want to try doing this thing? And then they have the opportunity to go, no, I want to keep going with this, or yes, let's go do that.
Hmm.
And for me, working with send individuals, they typically go, yep, we're going to move on to that one now because I don't like this thing. But
Hmm.
what I find interesting is once they've moved on, they then, without prompting, after 2 or 3 goes of this new skill, go back to the thing they were doing a second ago because now they want to try and get that done. But when I've brought attention to their feelings in the past, it's then emphasized that feeling even more because now they're talking about it. Now they're getting more frustrated and they just get off the trampoline. Like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm getting off. Whereas if I don't acknowledge, like externally acknowledge the feeling that they're having and just ask, okay, well, should we try this one now? Or should we try and do this one now? Or what else do we need to get done? So it's not oh, you failed at that. It's okay, let's move on to this thing and then we'll come back to that later. That's the way that I would articulate that situation.
I have found that to be ineffective. When, in
Interesting.
my experience, when
Yeah.
I've done that with my other half, it's been it has been met with more frustration, like additional frustration.
So
More,
they're doing one thing. They're getting
yeah. So they're
frustrated.
working on they're getting frustrated with that one thing. I say, do you want to work on something else? Or along those lines, like I just don't initiate with the emotion. And my perception is they think I don't see the I don't acknowledge it. And it's like, well, the reaction is often, well, it's easy for you. You are just organized. And I have this with multiple people in like multiple people I know. They're like, because I have been very well coachy, basically. I've been direct. I've been very much like this. Okay, cool. Let's look at this. Do you want to look at this now? Do you want to try this? Do you want to try that? It's like, no, I must do this. And it is very much they are frustrated. But if I do not acknowledge that frustration, there is a more.
So do you know that what, are you guessing that they are thinking that you haven't acknowledged the frustration?
I think yes. Yeah, and that is the assumption that I have based on the experiences that I've had, based on people are going, yeah, well, it's easy for you. Like you can just go and do things even when you're upset or even when you're this emotional, that emotion, you just need to just go and do things, but I can't. I'm paraphrasing, but that's
Hmm.
the experiences that I've had. And so,
Because to
yeah, go on.
me, that would be that would be an interesting situation to work out what the other individuals actually thinking. Because from my
Mm,
experience, when people do sort of double down on what it is that they're doing, it's because that's what they want to do. That is what they have themselves set to complete.
yes.
That is the task. That's what they will do. No, they're not switching, which again
Yeah.
is a totally valid response.
Oh yeah. And so often it's like, okay, cool. How would you like to like either it's how can I help if you want the help, or it is trying to find a
Do you
constraint.
ask how I can help before do you want help?
Yes, sometimes that is a thing that I'm working on because I do go straight to how can I help? I'd like to help versus do you want help? That is a thing I skip that question.
Yeah.
That is a practice design I'm working on.
See, that's something as a coach I find really interesting now because I don't ask how can I help?
Mm,
I don't even ask do you want help? I just stand at the side of the trampoline. Now,
mm,
if the individual turns to me and expects me to say something, I'll say, well, okay, what do you want me to help you with? Because they've asked me for help. I haven't gone in and said, "Hey, I'm the coach. I want to help you here," or "How can I help?" or blah blah. No, I don't say anything. I just stand there. I let
mm,
them do their thing. I let them do the problem solving. If they then want me to say something or they want help with something, then they ask for it. Otherwise, I'm just supporting the environment, which in most cases is standing there. In some cases, it's pushing a push-in mat, and if it is, it's when do you want it? After answer. Okay, and I push the mat in. So I let them control the situation, autonomy learning. I let them control the situation because they are the ones learning rather than asking the question. And for me, this is where practice design, and I don't know what we would call it, delivery, delivery of the philosophy. I don't know, but when
So
to ask questions.
so my question for you is then, so in the coaching environment that you're in, it is constrained fairly clearly with time and how much time you're spending and it is a finite amount of time coaching, would you say?
Broadly speaking, yes. I mean, there is a
Yeah,
start to the session and an end to the session.
yeah, there is a start and an end. So one of
If
the
we're talking
things that
sports coaching here, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So one of the things that come up for me and is a struggle point for myself when it comes to supporting and coaching is I would get nothing done. If we're talking from maybe it's that I'm answering my own question. Maybe it is me creating a a time a constraint to practice design this. So I will spend this hour, whether it be standing there doing nothing or whether it be like communicate like standing there and just being with the individual and holding that space, or it's answering questions or posing things. Because that was something that just came up for me of like, if I was to be coaching all of the time, which I sort of am, but sort of am not, that's a whole nother thing. I
Forget the
would
line in the
spend,
sand. Coaching is a label, remember, so it's fluid.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It is continuous. And so I was thinking of like, if I was to design practices, if I was doing practice design, I would spend a lot of time not working. I feel that I would spend a lot less time working in my business and a lot more time in the house than I could due to my own constraints.
But you've just said you do your practice design when you're not at your computer.
For myself, yes. Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Because most of my practice design is when I'm doing the washing up, or I'm walking the dog, or I'm driving to
Hmm.
training. Like I don't sit down or stand up or think in a chair. I don't sit down in a chair and go, right, I'm going to think about practice design.
Oh, yeah. And what I'm meaning is let's say I want, maybe it's that then.
And like even when I go to a trampoline session, like I need to set the trampolines up, so I get there slightly early. While I'm setting the trampolines up, I can do practice design. Do I? Sometimes. Most of the time, I'm just making sure I don't wheel the trampoline over my feet or push it into a wall or something. Like those things are heavy. But yeah, I'm not sitting down or putting aside some time to do practice design. And
No, no,
even
no. That,
and yeah, and even with the slot, I said yes, there is a start time and end time, but that's defined by access to the facility.
mm,
That's not okay, I'm coaching this whole hour. Again, this is where like when you think about what classifies as coaching, refer that to the conversation I had with Dave about flow and like is that flow? Where do we start and stop measuring flow? Because I could say, well, I'm always coaching, but then I'm coaching more at a trampoline session, but then at the session I'm coaching more when someone's on the trampoline, but I'm coaching more when I'm actually communicating with the person, but then I'm coaching more when I'm actually doing the communication myself. Like all of these different scales of measures that just
yes, that's true.
drastically, dynamically varied. So, yes, there is a time that the session starts on piece of paper, but some people might be on the trampoline before that. Some people might turn up after that. And when people are on the trampoline is going to be different from when they're off and doing something else. But when they're off the trampoline, they might still be learning trampoline because they're watching someone else. Like, so it's not as
Okay.
clear.
So my question to you, like in your kind of family dynamic, do you coach?
I would say yes.
So, because I think that is the thing that I think I'm struggling with in this conversation is like one of the things that I am prone to do is spend an awful lot of time helping everyone else to my own detriment. That is a pattern that I have of like focusing so much on helping everyone else that I struggle with helping, like, with just doing the things that I need to get done. Now, yes, I will still be thinking about all the things that I need to get done while I'm helping other people. That's totally cool. And there is that, but there is also the actual physical on a computer, typing it down, getting it into the space, replying to, it's the messages, it's the this, it's the sending of the emails, it's the sending of the Notion page, it's the actual, I suppose, the physical doing of it, which
Measurable
is
metrics.
the measurable metrics of it. And so one of the things that I am aware of is when I'm doing practice design for myself and doing practice design with others, I often spend more time helping like other people, which I love because that's what I like to do, but it is often to my own detriment. And so the reason I ask about time is to have that constraint there for myself as I'm developing my coaching practice of like keeping that balance. I hate the word, but it's that making sure that I have enough time to do the things that I need to do and also be a supportive coach to family and friends and all of that stuff. Like, I'd love to hear kind of your experience with that because that is one of the big things that I personally struggle with.
I mean, yeah, when
Yeah,
it
go
comes to coaching family, obviously we have a different family. We're in a different relation. Like
on.
I am, I am the oldest child in the house, but there's still two people older than me, one person younger than me, plus dog, of course. So I am at a different relationship with the rest of the house.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So whatever I say is going to be different from your experience anyway. But because of I don't want to say the training, but because of my education, I am more educated than my parents. Like neither of them got a master's degree, neither of them got a university degree either, and they couldn't help with my homework at college. Like it was too complicated. I was like, "Can you?" No, no. And my relationship with both of them is good. I have a good relationship with everyone in my family, but obviously there are elements where we all disagree. Like my dad does things that my mum doesn't like, my mum does things my dad doesn't like, I do things that neither of them like, but we work through it, and the working through it is the coaching, and that's what all of us do. But the conversation navigation is better on my side than it is on my dad's side, for example. He
Mhm.
has a very short fuse and he doesn't like being wrong. He doesn't like being proven wrong, which is the same as most people, but he doesn't work with that well. Like if he's wrong, there is a like my sister and I know that if we speak in a more childish tone and jokey tone, he won't explode. He won't start shouting and then moaning and all the rest of it. So we both detected this. We've had a conversation. We had a conversation about this years ago. We both detect when perceive perceive affordances of others, we both detect when he's starting to get frustrated and built up about something. So we shift the way that we communicate. Now, that is practice design. That is both of us recognizing, okay, he's getting stressy. Let's not speak to him like this, or like this. So we won't say direct words. We won't use firm language. We won't say these things because that we know that that's likely to trigger some sort of shouty response. So we just don't do it. That
Mhm.
to me is where practice design is educated by past experiences of skill development in his ability to do something, i.e., not shout and explode, and our ability to match that. Have we made mistakes when we were younger? Definitely, but we've learned from that. So that
Mm.
is how I would apply practice design in communication in family. And then when it comes to the delivery, obviously that's my tone, that's the word choice, that's my linguistic skill, I guess you could say.
Mm.
The ability to communicate without pissing people off, which is obviously very useful. And then, in a similar sense, when he gets frustrated at things, so practical example, he doesn't like doing the washing up. Like it hurts his back, basically. But it hurts his back because he's obese and he doesn't do much activity. So leaning over, obviously he's got stomach and he's got a bad back anyway because of old injuries. So we know he doesn't like doing the washing up and the drying up. So he was doing the washing up and drying up at lunch and at dinner. But at lunchtime, when he comes back home from work, he doesn't want like because I never used to do the washing up like when I was younger, and he would get frustrated. So what I recognized is, oh, okay, He gets frustrated when he comes home from work. That is a bad time for us to talk to him. What can I do to help that? And instead of me asking him, hey, how can I help? Because he, being the man of the house, being very traditional, doesn't want help. He can do it. He is in control. So I stopped asking him, how can I help? And I just started doing the washing up and drying up. Now he didn't notice for the first 3, 4 weeks. And then he was like, I haven't done the washing up for a while. Someone else is doing it. Who's doing it? So I said, oh yeah, I'm doing it at lunch. And that was fine. And that was me helping him because I recognized, okay, I think this could help. But I didn't ask him, should I do
Mm,
the washing up sort of stuff? So maybe that helps give some context.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. There are loads of other small sort of interactions, like doing the dog's meds. And I think clear communication is the easiest solution when it comes to clear practice design.
Mm,
Like it's the easiest solution. Like when I say it's the easiest solution because we've always had it in our family.
mm,
And when I've been around a friend's house or spoken to people that get frustrated, it's the lack of communication or the lack of clarity in communication that gets frustrating. And when we
yeah.
struggle here, it's because someone forgot to put something on the family calendar, or someone didn't put something on the whiteboard for the food, or someone didn't tell someone that they were going to go do something. Like that,
Mm,
that's where the frustration is. Like I couldn't find my heart rate monitor before yesterday. I could have assumed someone's moved it. I don't know where they've moved it to, but I know the rest of my family don't touch my heart rate monitor because I've said I don't want anyone touching it because I don't know where my stuff is. So they don't. So I know I've moved it somewhere. I
interesting. Okay, cool.
so I can trust that it's no one else's like no one else has got in my way. It's I've put it somewhere. So when I do get frustrated that I can't find it, it's okay. I've done something to it, or something has happened to it that other people aren't aware of. So it's not, oh, they moved it out the way. It's they probably knocked it off the side. So my search then changed. I went from my 3 normal places and I was like, okay, well, if someone, again, this is me thinking through scenarios, if someone was to knock it and not realize it, where would it go?
Yeah.
And it had fallen down behind the shoebox by the front door. Like that's where I found it. It's like, oh, okay. Previously, I could have easily got frustrated and said, oh, dad's moved it while he was doing the Hoover, and I don't know where he's put it, and then I could blame him for moving it around. And then he's going to get frustrated because I'm blaming him for doing something that he didn't do, and then it becomes an argument that could have easily been avoided by me just recognizing, actually, no, he said he didn't move anything around. I'm going to trust that, and maybe it's just somewhere that didn't recognize, and that's me navigating the situation free for me through design of my practice when approaching the problem.
Okay, cool.
And I do that all the time with every situation that I'm in, which is why I think I have, as many people have said, a very long fuse.
Yes, you do have an alarming. You are, yeah, yes.
I don't get stressed,
You are
frustrated.
just ridiculous. It was really funny. Even from the experience of like you coming here to see me, Troy's like, "Do you know when he's gonna be here?" I'm like, "No, he'll be here." And Troy was just like, "You are remarkably calm." Like, she actually went, "Why are you not bothered by this?" I'm like, "Because he'll be here when he's here. It's fine. Like, he'll get food if he needs food. I don't need to worry about." You are so different. I said, "Yeah, I know, because I trust he'll take that. I recognize that now. Like with what you're saying, I trust he'll take care of himself and he'll be here and he'll let me know when he's nearby or when he's coming or what's going on." And even when it got later, I was like, "Oh, cool. You must have a trampoline has gone on. Cool, cool." Like I could trust that it would happen because you have so because you take care of yourself. That you just yeah.
Yeah. And
And
that,
it was really funny because Tori was literally was like, "You're not fast. Normally you're stressing. Normally you're worried, but like whenever this happens, you don't like it." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. It's Danny. Danny is incredibly chill, and it's very easy to interact with him because he'll be here when he gets here, and it's fine."
yes. And that, I'm so glad you said that because that is what I've tried to explain to other coaches. Because what another coach has said to me is everyone is so chilled when you're here in the session. And I'm like, that's because I give them the autonomy. I give them the trust from me for them to problem solve themselves. I'm not pushing them in a box and closing them and say, I need to control this, I need to control. No, do whatever. I give them the freedom and I trust them to be safe and be controlled. Yes, I still have some constraints for safety reasons, but we work that out together. And so they feel more
Could you
comfortable.
give an example of that? Because I'm just thinking from like you saw the interaction with my son,
Mhm.
who is in the teenage stage,
Yeah.
as you could see, and I'm quite interested how because my reaction because often he's in that stage of life where he doesn't want to do anything. He wants to rebel against every single thing that his parents ask him to do. So he's not probably taking care of himself. He's not like bringing his clothes down to be washed. He's not washing his clothes, etc., etc., etc. And so he doesn't have clothes. And that is a friction point right now because often the school will come back to us as parents and we are not doing the job. And we have expressed, well, I have
So
expressed that to Aiden.
to focus in on that example then. So
Yeah.
the school has told you that Aiden is what, wearing the same clothes? Like what exactly are the school telling you?
So what they're when he smells, they
Right.
can tell he's not bathing, he's not looking after himself properly. They are concerned.
Okay.
Can you get him to do the thing? Can like he'll
So
come in with dirty clothes. And there is that perception from me. I noticed there is that as well. That it's kind of both. And so that is a real like I know he's struggling and I know he's etc etc but the outcome I want is that he's able to take care of himself, he's able to exist in this in the world that we're in and the societal bollocks,
so my
which
question there is, does he understand the problem?
maybe not then.
Because if he
My
doesn't
instant
understand the
reaction
problem, he
is
won't problem
yes.
solve it.
Yeah, maybe that is the case. Maybe I need to sit down and just have a chat with him about the problem. Yeah,
This comes back to practice design.
yeah,
What is the win condition? Well, if
yeah.
you don't know what the problem is, there is no win
Win
condition.
condition.
The
So
win
it's just
condition here is
it's
him washing. But if he doesn't have
yeah.
a problem, why does he need to wash?
Yeah, because as far as he's concerned, well, what that I'm doing it because you make me do it, because I have to do it. Versus the reason why. It's like, hey, if this doesn't get done, the school come back to us, say that they have a concern. Like,
But do you say what the concern is? Like,
yeah,
do you tell
not
him the school is telling us that you smell?
I'm telling him that too, yes. But not that the school is also saying it and they're also worried and they're also concerned. So maybe that is where I need to,
Because
yeah,
for him, thinking from his perspective for a second, if he comes home and you say, "Oh, you smell, you need to wash, change clothes, do whatever," that doesn't necessarily mean there's an association with him at school because he's now at
it's
home.
just parents being difficult and annoying. And why do I have to do this?
Yeah,
Rebellious stage. Cool.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful because that's I think that's a really hard thing for us at the moment, and Tori's really struggling with it, which means she struggles with getting things done because she's also trying to do the other, and so there's a lot
Mm.
of like spirally things, and I really appreciate the trusty thing, the communication and the trust. Like that is like, oh, that's really interesting because is there
I
trust?
I see that as I trust them to problem solve. Like
Yeah,
I'm not reducing their ability and saying, oh, you can't do that. No, here's a problem that I've been given about you. Can you solve it? And
yeah,
most of the time, they know what to do to solve it. So
mm,
that's I mean, it's very hard
yeah,
as the coach, as the person with duty of care, because you're essentially putting the duty of care up to them. And if they mess up, there are consequences. You're more vigilant of the consequences because
yeah.
obviously you are the responsible
The
adult or
consequences suck, but like the consequences hit us hard.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
But that is where, for me as the coach, it's like going back almost a decade now. Putting my trust in individuals was extremely difficult. But
Mm,
because I've seen it over and over and over and over again,
mm,
that actually people are competent enough to solve their own problems, I can trust easier, which is why I'm more trusting in other people.
mm.
Previously, I was not, and it certainly took time. And the only way to develop that ability to trust, that skill to trust, is
Do
to
it.
give people the opportunity. Again, as we mentioned previously in the podcast, it's about being vulnerable. As a
Mm,
coach, I am being vulnerable in giving them autonomy to problem solve this
mm,
situation. Now, I'm still going to constrain the situation so that they aren't going to hurt themselves.
yeah.
So the way I do that on trampoline is do what you want on your first go. Just make sure you're comfortable doing it. And same,
Yeah.
make sure you're comfortable doing it. Doesn't sound like a constraint for
But it is.
them. You're like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, duh, I'll be safe. I'm not going to try and do a double backflip because I can't. But it is a constraint because I'm not
Mm,
saying I'll do what you want. I'm saying do what you want that you're comfortable with. So they might do skills that other coaches will say, no, don't do that on the first go because you're not ready, you're not prepared, you're not warmed up. But they're comfortable doing it there. So why not?
I like that phrasing. Do what you're comfortable with, because that really does. And I was about to ask, how would you use that in like in my example with my kids? And I'm like, no, I would just say that because they have their own. If I trust that, we've had these conversations. He knows right from wrong from a societal basis. Then I trust and go, okay, tidy your room to a point where you feel comfortable. Like, do this thing comfortable. If you are comfortable with that, okay. And trust that they'll sort it out. And if they're struggling, then ask questions and be there as a support and trust they'll problem solve.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that. No, that's
Because
really helpful. Yeah.
with the room thing, I find that one interesting because a lot of kids, a lot of people. I said kids because I was messy when I was younger. I'm still messy, but it's a different type of messy. But there's a reason it's a different type
Yes.
of messy, and a lot of kids don't recognize why mess is bad. So
Mm.
if you tell them you need to clean your room, all I did was shove stuff under the bed and put it in cupboards, and then after like a couple of days, it was all back on the floor again because that's where I needed it. That's where I wanted it. I wanted it on the
Yeah.
floor so I knew where stuff was. My
Mm.
sister's the same. She'll have stuff all over the floor so she knows where, right, work clothes are in that pile, go out clothes are in
Mm.
that pile, bed
Mm.
clothes are in that
Mm.
pile. They're all on the floor, but
Mm.
she knows where it is.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah. If she doesn't have the space to do that, or she
Mm.
wants to work in a cleaner space, then she'll clean it up. But that's when she's comfortable to clean it up. If
Mhm.
other people need to get in, so that side of my room, because I got the airing cupboard in the mirrors, other people need to get in.
Mm.
So I know that there needs to be a walkway from my door to the airing cupboard door, so my mum and dad and sister can get stuff out of the airing cupboard. So there is a reason for it to be clean.
Interesting. Yeah.
Otherwise, I mean, at the moment, oh, just threw thingy in the bin. At the moment, I've got a bag that could be getting in the way, which I know it's going to get in the way. So I make sure I leave other side of my like the middle part of my room clean so they can get round it. So I'm working with the problem. I'm problem solving for the problem. And my parents know they trust me to make sure my room isn't a tip so they can get in and out. Now, when I was younger, it was a tip this side, not that side. But I figured that out when I was younger because they said, we need to get to the airing cupboard. Oh, okay. So I problem solved for get to airing cupboard, make mess
Whether
on the
that
side.
meant move the mess to the left-hand side of the room is fine. It's like, well, I can get in, I can get out, I can open the door, I can shut the door.
Exactly.
Like, I'm thinking the specifics for Aiden is like, I want to be able to get in, like, open the door, which I can't. Safety is purely the reason. Like, if we need to get out, I need to be able to open that door and get you out. Everything else, don't give a shit about.
Yeah.
Because that is actually like, if I remove all societal expectations and blah 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 blah, that's what I care about. It's like safety. That's what I care about.
Yep.
Being able to open that door and get you out, and you
But
to be able
that's
to
an
get out.
obvious problem that he can solve
Yeah,
for.
yeah, yeah. Interesting. Yeah, that's really cool. Thank you.
Right. Nice. So there's practice design in real life.
And I think that's really important because often so much of what we do doesn't think about problem solving in this way.
Well, because it's self-organization. Like when people say, "Oh, give autonomy, be person-centered, learner-centered," people, what does that mean? What does that look like in practice? Saying those
You
words
talk
doesn't
about,
mean anything.
yeah, you talk about the thing, but there's no action behind what you're doing. You can't describe how you're doing it, but this is what it is.
Yeah.
This is exactly what it is.
And I think when people say, "Oh yeah, giving their children autonomy," that doesn't mean picking between a bad choice and a hard choice. That means trusting their ability to problem solve. Organisms self-organize. Self-organizing systems means that they can problem solve. If they are struggling to problem solve, change the problem. Task simplification. I don't see that as I don't see that as difficult. And put it into practice. Obviously, I've been doing it for almost a decade now, so it's not difficult for me because I've developed those skills. It's still hard in some situations because I want to try and encourage certain movements. And I'm like, oh, okay, you came up with a solution that I wasn't expecting you to come up with, but that's not a bad solution. It's just not the solution I want you to have because of this other reason. Oh, okay, I need to add this other reason in so that you can problem solve to find that solution. But maybe they find something else and you go, actually, you know what? That solution that I had probably isn't as good as the solution you've got right now, so I'm just going to leave it. Now,
And that is just skill. Like that is just you gain experience through action, and then you know when a skill is, yeah, you just leave it, let it, it's fine. And then other times you're not sure.
something I heard yesterday that I I understand where it's coming from, but I fundamentally disagree with how it's applied in practice
Mhm.
is, oh no, now you have that bad habit, we need to untrain it. And this again goes back to the best technique. You need to have the best technique first. But if you're developing a skill, you're not going to have the best technique to start with. And as you're developing those skills, you'll develop more effective solutions for the skills. I don't think someone that is learning, again, using trampoline as the example, the double back stuff at the start, I don't think someone that needs to go round twice is going to put the same amount of effort in the skill if they don't need to get around twice
Mm.
because it's not a problem they've got to solve. What you're asking them to do is imagine a problem and then imagine what the solution of that problem might feel like and execute it in a similar way, but not to be unsafe in the skill they're actually doing. Like, that to me is pointless.
Mm.
It's basically saying to me, imagine you doing a double back somersault on a trampoline. Yeah, right now do a seat landing. But imagine you're going to do a double back.
But one, I don't know what double back is, so why would I
Two back
care?
somersaults in one jump.
But like if yeah,
Yeah. You're like, uh, I don't know what that feels like. I've never done that thing before. How am I meant to imagine this thing? And
yeah,
so when I see those skills, like, oh, but that prep skill, the seat landing, isn't good enough for the double back yet.
yeah,
Yeah, but the seat landing and the double back, they're two different skills.
yeah.
Like saying you can juggle balls, but you can't juggle rings. Well, no, because they're different objects. Like, duh.
Thank you for telling me something I already know.
Yeah.
Cool.
Right. Now just need to package it up and put it into a course.
Yeah,
Anything else you want to add, by the way?
it's good.
All right. Bye, everyone.